Hello and welcome. I am the Suit&Tie Dip&ChewGuy, and this is P.S.A. number 4. This is the public service announcement, fourth installment now. When I did the first one, it was sort of tongue-in-cheek, and I was hoping the first one would be the last one, but now here we are. This is the fourth P.S.A. P.S.A. for new people stands for Public Service Announcement, and that's why it was sort of tongue-in-cheek during the first video, but now that doesn't seem as humorous anymore. For those that do not know what this is about, this is basically covering news and updates and my thoughts on the coronavirus outbreak that was originally in China and is now going seemingly globally. If you're not in the know about this at all, if you are just starting to take notice on the news and people talking around you, there are 3 other videos, P.S.A. being the titles, 1, 2, and 3, and they are right now slotted under non-review chats in the playlist section. Watching them will give you the basic idea and gist of what is going on, and soon they may be in a playlist by themselves because that's the way this is going. So I had commented last night that I had thought about doing this number 4 last night, but things were moving so quickly I couldn't get a grasp on things. Every time I went back for an update on an update page, numbers had changed, new countries had been added, and I was like, what the heck is going on? So I decided to wait the 24 hours, and it has been not a very good 24 hours. A lot of people have said a lot of things. There have been people that there's been name calling online. I had some people even say stuff to me on my Facebook account earlier today, basically that I was being alarmist and this was nothing worse than a cold. So, one of the people, I'm going to address what they said to me on this other platform because it seems to be a misconception. Partly because the flu numbers this year are all over the place, the regular seasonal flu. So, what the person basically put across to me and anybody that would listen was that this virus is no more deadly than the seasonal flu. That is absolute nonsense. That couldn't be further from the truth. Okay? Don't let anybody tell you that. I'm not saying you should counter them and argue them. Let them think what they want, because if they haven't delved any deeper to find out the truth themselves, then you're not going to be able to correct them. Let me put it that way. If I manipulate this year's American flu numbers, and there's a high and low overall infection rate, okay? If I bring it all the way down and go by the low infection number, the number of people in America that have been diagnosed with flu, and I take the deaths, now there's high and low numbers again. If I move the confirmed ones up, that is the deaths that are confirmed as due to complications with seasonal flu, if I move them all the way up to the highest, okay, so I'm bringing overall infections down to the lowest and overall deaths up. If I do that, then the fatality rate for this year's seasonal flu is 0.15%. That is the percentage of deaths out of the total number of infections. That is me highly manipulating that to get that number. And that is the highest number that you'd be able to get. Because if you use any numbers moving the infection rates higher and the deaths lower, then it's not even going to be that. So 0.15. The Wuhan virus, as of right now, okay, in the world is at 2%. That's 2.0. The other one was 0.15. This is 2.0. That's obviously a big difference than the seasonal flu. What's worse, though, is that that number is manipulated way down, and I'll explain why. Number one, 2% death rate is what the Chinese Communist Party is saying. That is why in one of the previous videos you saw me refer to a 5%. That was via Army intelligence. Okay? Army intelligence has now thrown that 5% number out because, well, that's a whole nother story in itself. But the problem with the 2%, let's say the Chinese communists are telling the truth and it is actually 2%. The problem is that is deaths out of infections. Just like the number for the seasonal flu, that is deaths out of infections, but I got to add that those infections in the seasonal flu have come full circle and those people are now better. Most of the people with the Chinese virus infections have not gotten better yet. So really, the 2% is reflective of how many people have died thus far out of the sick. But when you take the deaths out of the number that have recovered, then the number is trending towards 9 to 10%. Not the end of civilization, but really, really bad news. So you hear a lot of people talking. This evening, the president even did his only second ever press conference from the White House. There are a lot of people in the United States downplaying this. Besides trolls on Facebook, there are a lot of people, official outlets of government, downplaying it. The president, in his defense, has to downplay it. In fact, I would say go as far as saying if he didn't, it could be criminal. To have him go out and tell you everything he knows tonight would probably cause mass panic and the loss of life. Other sources, news sources, are downplaying it. Now, that depends on whether the federal government has requested that they downplay it so that there will not be panic and loss of life. If they're just downplaying it because they'd rather talk about Russian interference in the 2020 election, then, then Lester Holt can go suck an egg, basically. So it depends what the person is trying to gain or accomplish by what they're saying. People in official positions that are actually worried about the outcome of what they say, I'm going to give a little leverage to. If the person is just downplaying the possibilities of this because the Russian thing gets more ratings, then yeah, you know what I think about that. So let's say, for instance, tonight on the NBC World News, or whatever they call the evening news, with Lester Holt, their reporter said repeatedly that, the United States government has plenty of masks and they're well prepared, it's a real stuff, and all this hysteria about not having enough masks and da-da-da is just that, hysteria. Well, that's all fine and good, but 23 hours before this, and a day before it, I watched Tucker Carlson interview a spokesperson from the DHS, this is yesterday, that said they were going to be sourcing and buying 1 billion face masks today. Okay, so is it all hysteria and the government's well supplied, or is the government buying a billion face? Like, which is it? I'm going to go with the DHS guy. He probably spoke out of turn. Somebody probably told him he was in trouble afterwards. But you got to watch what... They're going to tell you one thing. Okay? But watch what they're doing. They're going to try to put across to you a feeling. But watch what they're doing and actually saying. Like the president was trying to protect his own ass, for lack of better terms, and be as truthful as possible while not cause panic tonight. Well, I personally don't think it's going to be that bad, but we're ready if it is. Okay, that's what he's saying. But what is he doing? Well, he's putting his vice president in charge of the virus counterattack. He's instructing DHS to source and buy 1 billion face masks. There's a war room at the White House to combat this. So that's the type of stuff you need to be watching. So that brings us on to what is actually happening. Well, basically, it is bad news right across the board. I actually have a couple sources of my own that have... I'm not going to put it out as fact because my source isn't quite sure if it is fact. They are going by what those around them are saying. So my source is in South Korea and is a member of the United States Army. At his posting is a Army intelligence unit with whom there are members he is friends with. They have information that we do not have, and this is what has been relayed to me. That they are extremely skeptical now of the infection /death counts in China. They actually have footage of burn vans. That's what Army Intel's referring to these things. They're basically vans dispatched from Chinese crematoriums that are pulling bodies out of apartment blocks, putting them in the van and driving them straight to the crematorium. The crematoriums are working around the clock. There has been a little bit of that in the mainstream news. What basically, how that came about is U.S. satellites picked up increased heat gas signatures from crematoriums near Wuhan. They look like they're burning something around the clock. The one person said to my source that they don't know what it is. Quote, it could be 250,000 deaths for all we know, but it's not 2%. End quote. In the regular news, we have, this is what the president did not cover, we have spread, significant for early stages, spread in Germany. South Korea, in certain locales, we have basically a wildfire of spread. On Long Island, United States, there are 83 people being monitored. North of Manhattan in Westchester, there are a further 8. Iran has now ballooned over 100 cases and 19 deaths have been reported. France has reported its 2nd death. There are new cases, sometimes more than one, in Pakistan, Kuwait, Iraq, Lebanon, Bahrain, and Brazil, North Macedonia, Croatia, Greece, and Norway. Finland reported yesterday that it had cases. There have been 2 deaths now in Japan and growing panic in Tokyo. There is a solitary case in Northern California, which has not been traced from an overseas flight. It would appear the person was infected stateside, and they're not quite sure how. And that is basically what's going on. I could go further with that, of course, but it gives you a general idea. Basically, the Middle East has fallen. Southeastern Europe and Europe as a whole has been infiltrated by it. It has now popped up in South America, and Asia is, as it has been, in trouble. There have also been another 1 or 2 cases in Canada. Not sure where. So, how bad is this? What's the brass tacks here? Suit&Tie, Dip&ChewGuy. Just you went on for 15 minutes about the world end. The world's not going to end. This is not a extinction event by any means. Although you may want to use this as practice because it's been about 101 years since the last worldwide pandemic, and I do not think at all that it will be as long as another 100 years before we're faced with something else. We dodged a bullet in 2003 with SARS. We didn't dodge it this time, but the bullet is not a civilization killer, but it does pose us serious problems. So what you have to be worried about, basically from a health aspect, okay? In the United States, we are thus far extremely successful with treatment. A lot of the original 15 cases are already back home. Some of them never went to the hospital. They sheltered in place at their houses. I don't know if I was their neighbor, how I'd feel about that, but that's what they did. I'm sure they were under surveillance, but from a medical health standpoint, we will most likely not be terribly damaged by this, in my mind, unless one of 2 things happen, both of which are possibilities, okay? 1, there is some serious mutation, and all of a sudden, the drugs that we have been using here that have been highly successful are no longer highly successful. Or 2, it spreads like wildfire, which this thing is extremely contagious, okay? It spreads like wildfire, okay? And although the severity of the illness in people is not that bad, our medical system gets overrun and collapses. Once the medical system collapses, that's when people start getting sent back home. Test kits run out. They can't test the people that are at the hospital. Well, if we can't test you, we don't know if you have a virus. If you don't know you have the virus for definite sure, then you have to go home. That is when things go sideways. If that was the case, or both of those things happen, because really every time there's a new infection, there is a new chance for a mutation. If our medical establishment got overrun and basically swamped, that is a problem. And that is why the federal government, president comes to mind first, is not trying to cause a panic. Because a panic could turn something that, yeah, this isn't good, but we'll make it out the other side, into something where, holy crap, this is really bad, and it's all because the president said there was a reason to worry, basically. Because you know somebody's going to blame him for anything he does. Either way. So that is my thought on the actual health. As long as it doesn't mutate badly, and as long as our health system doesn't get overrun, we may be okay. There's other problems with this, though. Basically, we're looking at a serious slowdown in some places, collapse of the world economy. China has been putting out left and right, oh, our cases are down, for the last couple of days. The reason they are saying that is for the benefit of their own people. They are trying to get people to go back to work. That's the main drive behind this. But economic reasons, there are going to be economic issues because of this, and they will get us here in the United States. We may again be better than the rest of the world, but it is coming. There's a little bit of a delay, but I guarantee you it's coming. And then there's the panic. When people panic, pardon my French, bad shit can happen, and it can happen quick. Example of this is when the suburbs to the south side of Washington, D.C. a year and a half ago lost power for 5 days. Well, you should have seen what happened there, and that was basically because people couldn't recharge their smartphones. All right? So you get an economic situation where supplies run scarce because they don't have the stocks, and then people panic and are panic buying, and you can end up with a situation where there are a whole lot of desperate people. And in that situation, you want to be prepared and, if at all possible, armed. Yes, armed. Because, especially in certain sections of society, there's going to be certain sections of society that are not only worried about not having food, they have the added worry of not having heroin or crack or what you throw it in. We know how these people sometimes act under regular circumstances. You can only imagine what would happen in a situation where emergency services are overrun and the slowdown times of the police department give these people the idea we might be able to get away with this. So something to think about there. What should you do? Now, this is another reason why I waited a day, because I wanted to collect myself on this, because at the same time, I obviously do not have the audience of the president. At the same time, I do not want anyone to go out and act irrationally either. As I have said, this is not a civilization killer, okay? We're not talking about some Hollywood movie like Carriers or something, okay? This is not that. There may be a day where that comes, but this is not it. What you want to do, and I've been referring to notes the whole time. You want to get into habits of washing your hands, preferably with antibacterial soap. Okay? You want to gauge if you're a person that touches your face a lot. If you are, and a lot of people are, you just don't notice it. If you are, you want to try to break that habit or get into the habit of not touching your face. You want to wipe down high traffic hand areas with Clorox or Lysol wipes, or better yet, spray it down with rubbing alcohol and wipe with a paper towel. When I say high traffic hand areas, I'm talking about door handles. This is at your house. Don't start rolling around, your local city buildings, wiping down the horn, but your house, refrigerator hand, basically any handle you can think of, anywhere that's getting a lot of traffic from people's hands. You want to start wiping them down. You want to boost your vitamin C intake, okay? Now, you cannot OD or, take too much vitamin C. They suggest that you take in an extra, not via food, but like go out of your way for extra, 60 to 90 milligrams a day. But you can take up to 2,000, okay? Now, after 2,000, although you can't really OD on it, you could have side effects. There could be light nausea. You could get a slight headache. stuff like that. So I wouldn't suggest going over 2,000. 2,000 would be enough. Personally, myself, I take on a normal day during normal times 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams a day. I take 2 to 3 500 milligram chewables. Okay? So vitamin C is important immune-wise. They're finding out all kinds of stuff about it recently, including that it sometimes attacks cancer cells in high enough doses, which conspiracy circles have been saying for decades. But as it turns out, it's not really a conspiracy theory. It's sort of true. Also, as far as vitamins go, as far as in vitamins for immune health, vitamin A, which usually come in very small gel capsules, and zinc. Okay? Now, for some reason, if you think you are vitamin deficient and that taking vitamins, you may not be absorbing enough of the vitamins. Number one, vitamin C is not absorbable. It passes through you. So as far as the 500 milligram chewables I take, I space them. Okay? A and zinc will stay within you if you absorb them. If you have questions about whether you are actually absorbing this stuff, then you add vitamin D3. Vitamin D, you can also get it through milk. That is the D that is in milk, like vitamin D milk. Vitamin D3 allows the body to absorb minerals better, and vitamins better, rather. And minerals, I believe, too. You want to, in your normal food shopping, start adding canned food. Or if you already get canned food, you want to increase the amount of canned food. As far as food goes, canned food or whatnot, any food that has long keeping periods. Canned food I'm using as an example because it is probably the most widely known, obvious. Canned food is usually dated out at least a year. You can have it sitting on a shelf. It won't go bad over longer periods of time. Obviously, do not go out and stock up on organic milk unless it's snowing. And then you want to get some bread too. Just saying. But you want to increase the amount of food you buy that has long keepability, longer shelf life, all right? Or you can literally start stocking up on food like, basically with a lot of this stuff, you got to look at it. How much insurance do you want? We're Americans. We insure our cars, our houses, our boats, our motorcycles. We have life insurance. That's sort of a dumb name because it's for when we die. You know, look at this as insurance for you staying alive. Okay? So it's up to you how far you go with it. I would at least start increasing stock of food that it has long shelf life. Or you can go out and get a lot. No matter which way you go about it, do not overly advertise that you're doing prep, especially to people that may know you and or where you live. And then finally, for people in urban areas, you may want to at least mentally prepare for civil unrest or breakdown of law and order or some mixture of the two. People that are armed, you want to go over ammunition stocks, what condition your firearm is in. If anything needs maintenance or cleaning, you want to do that now. You do not want to wait until it's needed. All right. For close combat fire protection, indoors, close quarters, the most obvious choice in my mind would be a shortened length shotgun, a tactical shotgun for ease of operation and simplicity of mechanism. and also for not needing to really overly aim in close quarters. But whatever you have, you may want to refamiliarize with it. Okay? And I'm going to leave this at that because it's been a half an hour. I've been talking for a half an hour. I'm a little surprised this computer is still working. There's going to be more of these. I know there is. Listen, just remember, in the end, understand who has what to lose when they are telling you information about this crisis. Okay? Try to mentally prepare and get an idea of what you're doing. Basically, get a wide range of sources, one. And two, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I am the Suit&Tie, Dip&ChewGuy. I do hope you are well. Do take care of yourselves. Be safe, and God bless.